So in last episode, Davin had just sort of walked away from all his responsibilities. Uh, Today we are getting into episode 7, which is what are we going to do? Let's get started. Hi, my name is Danielle Forrest, and on this channel I do videos about myself, my writing, and anything related to those topics. Like I said, today we're going to be reading episode 7. And one thing that's kind of fun in between, recording the last video and this one is I actually got someone um, telling me how much they like my videos. And that's a first so far on this channel. So thank you. You know who you are. I really appreciate you. All right, let's get started. Jess took far longer than she needed getting back home. She'd spent hours around the Anacostia Riverwalk Trail and had even managed to catch a couple rabbits in the process. Their weight hung heavily, though, in the bag on her back as she approached the front door. The familiar structure seemed alien and intimidating after everything she'd seen today. She was tempted to just turn around and hope no one had seen her standing on the front lawn like an idiot. What am I going to do? She didn't have an answer, but she couldn't stand here forever. Eventually, she would have to go inside and face her friends. Aliens have invaded Earth, she said to no one, practicing for the inevitable conversation to follow. I saw aliens today. I don't know who's in charge now. She took slow breaths, hoping to curtail the panic that rose up every time she thought about their new reality. She could feel the pressure building, like the churning waters growing increasingly intense in a wave pool, until you felt like you could barely keep yourself from drowning. The panic growing out of control, she filled her lungs completely in one massive pull of air, then let it out in a slow, audible breath. You've got this. Just tell them. Don't worry about things you can't control. Don't worry about the future. That will come in time. Worry about the now, the here. She took another deep breath, letting it out equally slowly. What is the here? What is the now? The here was home, her and her friends. The here was how they were going to survive and protect themselves. The now was that they were relatively safe. They had food and shelter. The weather was being cooperative. For the time being, they were safe. She'd seen aliens, but they'd been all the way at the Capitol building, miles away. She didn't know why they were there, but they weren't here, at least not yet. Focus on the here and now, she said one last time as she took another deep breath, then started walking toward the house. She pulled her keys from her pocket, unlocking the door as a surreal sense of disconnect washed over her. When she stepped inside, it was to silence. Are they even here? Is everyone gone? She knew immediately it was a ludicrous thought. Jess was the first person to have left since the power went out. Why would any of them have left the property now? Hello? She said to the entryway, but no one answered. Frowning, she moved on, walking into the kitchen, where she shrugged off her bag and placed it on the kitchen table. Then, needing the reassurance that everyone was okay, she stepped up to the sliding glass doors that faced the backyard. When she found everyone dutifully helping with the garden or goofing off, she let out a breath of relief. Jess smiled, grateful for and envious of their blissful innocence. With a nod, she turned, deciding to give them just a little more time in ignorance. She returned to the kitchen table and pulled out the plastic bag containing her kills. She felt a moment of unease at their dead weight pulling against her grip, at the sight of their diminutive forms through the transparent material. Her gorge rose as she pulled them out and dropped them into the sink. They looked so innocent, like they were only sleeping, and she hated what she would have to do next. Maybe I can wait. Get someone else to do it. She shook her head. No. If she was going to hunt, if she was going to kill, then she was going to have to face all the unpleasantness that came with it. Besides, was she really willing to put that on her friends? Turning away so she wouldn't have to face what she was about to do, she focused instead on what she would need. Jess tried to remember her last experience with a dead body, dissecting a cat in her college anatomy labs. She'd used a scalpel then. She didn't have one of those now, but maybe a paring knife would do? With that thought in mind, she wandered to the knife block on the counter and, unfamiliar with the layout, pulled out knife after knife until her hand gripped the one she was looking for. She then opened and closed the cupboards until she found where Amanda kept the cutting boards. Man, I really don't cook enough, do I? When she had all her supplies ready, she took the first rabbit from the sink. Staring down at the soft-furred creature, her gorge rose once again. At least with the cat, the room had been filled with the intense smell of formaldehyde. The animal had been fairly cold, and she'd been wearing gloves. But as she rested her hand on the animal's flank to hold it steady, she thought she could still feel its body warmth, and her eyes welled with tears. She sniffed once, then got to work, trying to keep her mind blank and breathe carefully through her mouth. When the fur, the skin, was finally gone, it got easier. She'd bought whole chickens and Cornish hens before, so without all that fur, she could finally see it as just meat, and she calmed down. She moved on to cutting the meat from the bone, much like she would with meat from the grocery store. But when she finished and stepped back, it didn't look like a lot of food, and her guilt gnawed at her anew. Why did I do this? Staring down at the little pile on the cutting board, she felt like a monster, taking 2 lives for what would probably only be a small supplement to their food reserves. This is why I never went hunting with my father. Maybe it would have been different if she'd been able to find a larger animal, maybe a deer. Deer had a lot of meat on them. A single deer would probably provide for a few days, maybe more. She wasn't really sure how heavy the average deer was or how much it would provide usable meat. But that didn't matter. She hadn't found a deer, and there was no point thinking about it. Setting those thoughts aside, she turned to the sink and washed her hands, then walked back to the sliding glass doors. This time, she pushed them open. "Jess!" Scott called almost immediately, practically bouncing over to see her. When he reached her, he engulfed her in a hug, using his larger form to lift and swing her back and forth, her toes barely brushing the ground. "Down, boy," she said, glaring at him playfully. He put her down as the others started trickling over. "You're back," Amanda said, smiling as she crossed the yard in her sundress, somehow looking put together and feminine in spite of the almost apocalyptic situation they were coping with. Before long, everyone else had stopped what they were doing, circling around her curiously. "Where did you go? What's it like out there? Did you bring anything back?" Questions came at her rapid fire, surprising her, as she hadn't thought anyone but Scotty had noticed her absence. She glared over at him, but he was looking away, trying to act innocent and failing miserably. She turned back to Amanda. "There's some rabbit on the counter. It's ready to cook." "Oh, I've never cooked rabbit before. Interesting." She was off immediately, the door thunking closed behind her, leaving Jess at the mercy of the rest of her friends. "So what did you find?" Tom said, looking ridiculous in a button-up dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hands were coated in dirt from helping in the garden, and even though his pants were black, she could still see the faint stains from kneeling on the ground. "Do I tell them?" Jess looked around at the expectant faces, wishing someone would tell her what to do. She turned around, watching through the glass as Amanda approached the counter with the rabbit meat on it, completely oblivious to the bomb Jess was about to drop. "Well?" Melissa said, her voice sharp as a knife. Jess sighed, bracing herself for the inevitable as she turned back around and forced herself to make eye contact. "What do I say?" Her friends were leaning toward her, eager to hear about the outside world, completely starved for information after the days-long communication blackout. Sorry if you can hear the dog playing with the wiggle toy in the background. She swallowed heavily, then tried to square her shoulders. As she finally looked up, meeting each person eye to eye, she stopped on Scotty, who was looking at her with compassion in his gaze, like he knew. He couldn't know. There was no way he could possibly know. but his eyes said otherwise. I, well, there wasn't really anyone out on the streets, thankfully. I took the Sosa Bridge, headed over to the Capitol. She paused, remembering the empty parking lot, remembering the alien voices and red skin, remembering the paralyzing fear that seemed almost too intense to have happened hours before. She took a careful breath in and out, not wanting to show what she was feeling, and continued. The parking lot was empty. There were aliens. Well, that makes sense, Tom said, crossing his arms and smearing brown stains on his pristine white shirt without seeming to notice. Jess stared, remembering all the times Tom had balked at even the idea of leaving the house without being perfectly pressed. Her gaze was stuck on those streaks of brown, but he didn't even seem to squirm at her uninterrupted focus. He showed no discomfort whatsoever, his facade immaculate. But the defensive posture and seeming obliviousness to the state of his clothes spoke otherwise. Come on now, Tom. Don't be a fucking idiot. Melissa dismissed him as she turned, zeroing in on Jess, her eyes gleaming with an uncomfortable intensity. Did you go inside? Was there anyone there? Did you find anything? With each question, her body grew more tense, her words faster, her focus absolute. Again, Jess thought of the aliens crossing the lawn and shook her head. No, she hadn't gone inside. She'd been too afraid to. That was the direction the aliens were heading. Now, Melissa, calmate. Inez stepped forward, putting a reassuring hand on Melissa's shoulder. Melissa rolled her eyes, but she also ceded to her friend's words. Inez had that kind of power over Melissa, being the only one in the house capable of settling her when she was on a tear. Well, what did you find? Scotty said. Aliens. It was the only thing she could say, the only word that would escape her locked vocal cords when she thought of that moment. What? Melissa shouted. She said aliens, bitch, Scotty said, teasing her. Oh, shut up. Scotty snort laughed, then looked over at Jess, a smirk on his face. It was clearly a struggle as he tried to get serious. Okay. He clapped his hands together. What about the aliens? How many were there? What did they look like? Did they look dangerous? She looked around her, heart lodged in her throat, unsure where to start. They looked military. She racked her brain. What else? Her heart raced like a hummingbird's wings as she continued spewing the first thing to come to mind, the lock in her words finally broken. There were 6 of them, and they had red skin and tails. Scotty started rubbing his chin thoughtfully, giving her a reprieve when he started talking. Red skin and tails? Are you sure it was skin? Could it have been scales? Jess froze, remembering the terror before her mind could process the rest of the memory. The fear felt like a warning sign telling her not to enter, but this wasn't something she could escape. So far, she'd only remembered those moments when they'd flashed through her brain unbidden. But now she had no choice. Her only option was to face it head on. She clenched her fists as she forced herself to remember more details. The voice came to her first, the strangest of them, her first clue that something was terribly wrong. Then it was the hypnotic sway of their tails, the black on red. But no matter how much she tried, she couldn't make out any more detail. She couldn't tell if they'd had scales. She shook her head, frustrated that she didn't know. It was just one detail, but it was so very fucking important. That detail could mean the difference between ally and enemy, friend and foe. She wanted to scream, but instead she just deflated, saying, I don't know. It felt like a failure, a defeat, like she'd let her friends down. But Scotty only shrugged, letting her off the hook far too easily. Could be Drakoans. They're allies, Tom said, arms still crossed. Allies can still stab us in the back, Melissa said sarcastically. They might not have done that, Jess said, surprising herself. After all, the first thing she'd thought when she'd seen the aliens was that Earth had been invaded, but maybe this was a good thing. Maybe they were here to help. It hadn't occurred to her that they might have been good guys when she first saw them. After all, they'd been living under the threat of a potential alien invasion. What else was she supposed to think? She's right, Scotty nodded, giving Jess a gentle smile of encouragement. If they were Drakoan, They might have been there at the behest of the government or military or something. He shrugged. But what if it isn't the Drakoans? Inez said, her voice even quieter than usual. What if the fleet failed? What if we've already been invaded? Then we do the best we can. Jess tried to sound confident, imagining how Melissa would be in her position. Her voice would be strong, maybe flippant or sarcastic. Her chin would be high, her shoulders back. She might even have a hand on her hip, showing just a bit of the attitude she was known for. Meanwhile, the real Melissa wrapped an arm around Inez's shoulder, pulling her close to her side. Come on, let's go inside and see if we can help with dinner. Inez nodded and they walked away. Tom nodded as well, finally lowering his arms. No point worrying about it now, he said before he followed them inside. That left just her and Scotty. She looked over at him, feeling the full weight of the unknown looming before her. What are we going to do? He scoffed, shaking his head. Don't ask me. I'm just a Trekkie. So, what did you think of today's episode? Not a lot going on this time, just kind of revealing to friends, getting to know the friends a little bit better. But you got to lay a little bit of groundwork, so it's something. I tried to throw in a little bit of fun and humor as much as I'm capable of, because I'm not really a comedic author, Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you like this video, consider giving it a like or subscribing to the channel. If you want notifications, hit the bell. And if you want to watch more stuff by me, you can find cards on the screen to do so. Until next time, bye!